Time. Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is Reverend Innis. It's my great joy to be the minister with this congregation of people of all ages at all stages of life. This is a beloved community striving to live into its mission of embracing freedom, loving wholeheartedly, adding to the growth and the healing of the world, and growing in mind, body, and spirit. We welcome people of all ethnicities and races, sexual orientation and gender identities, social and economic situations, politics, and abilities. We advocate for human rights, and we strive to be good stewards of our precious earth. So in living our mission, we recognize the deep network of relationship of which we are a part. This is the ancestral home of the Peoria people. They and other nations were here long before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. So we take a moment, as we have been asked to do, to recognize the Peoria people for who they were and for who they are. And I recommend, if you are on Facebook, that you go check out the Peoria Nation as they are in Oklahoma and how they are growing and developing in our time. I want to thank folks for joining us in person and online. We recognize how powerful it is to come together and how much it is a brave choice to come out into a community, to get to know people, and so much more. So please, if you're new to us today, please help us get to know you. We have name tags. We love all the questions. And please, let me invite folks to join us after service for coffee hour and conversation in Fellowship Hall. And if you're on Zoom, there can be a conversation there as well. Let me invite folks to turn and check all of your devices to see that they are in worship mode, either silent or buzzy. Appreciate it. We definitely have a tech ministry. If you need help, by all means, don't be shy, just ask. And we have a few notes for today. Excuse me. One, I want to start with a note of thanks for last night's trivia night. It was a fun and successful evening. Oh my gosh, so many questions and so many answers, and so many of them right and so many of them wrong. And it was great. So we had filled up Fellowship Hall with enthusiasm and no small degree of competition. I'm never going to forget the winning cheer for the folks who were like, yes. Speaking for myself, I also loved learning a few things as well. And so many people made it possible. There were folks who did the organizing, folks who created the questions, which were pretty good questions. Not that I knew all the ones, but they were pretty good questions. The Monday Evening Connection Circle, who supported and ran the kitchen, and everyone who donated prizes and much more. I'm sure we'll hear more about kind of how it all went in the course of things as well. Yep. So the debut of the trivia night. Thank you to everybody who made it happen. I want to invite folks after service today to join me in the conference room for coffee with the minister. We're going to have a bit of a focus for this conversation this time. We'll be on worship. So I want to invite folks to bring your questions. We'll touch on how worship happens here. What does it mean to create a service given the theological diversity of the congregation? And also talk a little bit about how to be involved. So I invite folks to grab a drink. I will have our own stash of Girl Scout cookies, so you need to come and see me. And join me in Fellowship Hall. Join me in the conference room at noon. Speaking of cookies, today is the second sale of the Girl Scout cookies for the season. I think Jesse's like the second and last. Please let it be the second and last. I don't know if you know that Jesse, wonderful Jesse Lachlan, is this phenomenal organizer of the Girl Scout cookies in this season. It is truly a second full-time job. And she does a great job, and she's looking forward to the end, and oh my gosh, so many cookies. So congratulations, Jesse, and to Becca as well, and to the whole troop. This afternoon, the weather is a little exciting, but this afternoon we will be hosting the Affirming Faith Communities of Peoria, hosting the superhero murder mystery adventure. And so youth ages 5th grade and up are welcome. I hope you will come and join us at 4 o'clock. And just a note for next Sunday is our new member welcome during the service. If you're wanting to know more about membership, this is recognizing folks who've been joining in the last little bit here. But if you're also wondering about membership, I want to invite folks to join us to find Regina Stanley and ask about that as well. And now I invite us to enter into our opening hymn, number 348, Guide My Feet. Please rise and body your spirit. It is in the gray hymnal if you'd like to have the music. Up. May welcome Jean Jost forward for our opening words.
Good morning, everyone. The opening words are, "We have come into this room of hope" by Libby D. Stoddard. And hope is useful on a day where it's raining outside and it's a little bit gloomy and maybe presumes some even worse situations. We have come into this room of hope where our hearts and minds are opened to the future. We have come into this room of justice where we set aside our fears to name freely every obsession. We have come into this room of love where we know that no lives are insignificant. So remember that all of your lives are not insignificant. We have come into this room of song where we unite our voices in the somber and the beautiful melodies of life.
Now I invite the scouts forward for our chalice lighting.
these hard times, let us look first for the response of love.
In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being.
In the midst of uncertainty, may our challenge be a beacon of encouragement, that our values may guide our choices.
Let us look first to the response of love.
During our music for meditation, all are welcome to come forward for a chance to light candles and make a small light that acknowledges what is with you and within you. If you are online, I invite you to let these candles be for you as well. Let us now enter into our music for meditation. spirit of community in which we find strength and common purpose. We turn our minds and hearts to one another. We bring into our circle of care all who are celebrating and magnifying joy. We bring into our circle of care all who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. This is the time for the sharing of joys and sorrows in the congregation. May I offer a note that I recognize that there are so much in our lives that is around us and among us. And this is a moment, whether or not we name something specifically, I know that our friends and neighbors are receiving our care, are receiving our concern, are engaged in that wonderful mutual support that simply is being present to one another. In our larger world, we offer solidarity with the Jewish community in Michigan. This week, a man rammed his car into the Temple Israel Synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan. He died during a shooting with the police afterwards. This synagogue also holds a school. No one in the school was hurt. The rise in violence against the Jewish community is a concern for all of us. May that Jewish community have the care they need. May this person be at rest. May we continue with love in our heart to continue to speak against hate and bias, knowing how it hurts all of us in so many ways. I close with a note to honor the spring equinox that is coming this week. I know we're skeptical about spring, but it is coming. From my colleague, the Reverend Stephen Schick. He offers this piece, Communion with Earth and Sky. Early spring awakens memories of a deeper cold and hopes of a warmer wetness, sprouting seeds and budding branches. Gray skies on gray skies screen eyes from all that lies waiting, the color of a million flowers, the feathers of migrating songbirds, the blossoming smiles of friends. Soon we will no longer look to the night stars to guide us. Soon the path will be lit and our task certain. In the warming days, we will plant our future, uprooting the useless skeletons of last year's harvest, breaking the clods of indifference, carefully pulling the weeds of neglect so that roots can stretch. Before the harvest moon rises, we wait again, images of still distant summer days, awaken thoughts of a time when all that is done can be done. And then the harvest, and then the transformation, and then the baking, and then the bread. All we know and love is in this cycle. All that has been or will be is in this loaf. Take it and break it and give thanks and pass it on. Let us hold one more moment together. In our circle, we have room for all the names, all the milestones, all the joys and sorrows that are among us. I invite us to hold one more moment in quiet. I invite you to breathe with me and pause. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. And now I invite Jesse forward for our story.
For our story today, I'd like to invite the Girl Scouts back up, and it has become a tradition in our congregation to celebrate Scout Sundays for the various scouting organizations in our area. We celebrated Scout Sunday with the Scouting America Scouts last month, and this month is Girl Scout Sunday. It lands on the founding of Girl Scouts USA. You might not know, but our church, way back in 1913, was really important in getting Girl Scouting started here in Peoria. Our church was the home for the very first Girl Scout Council in Central Illinois. And we said, come on in, that's a great idea. So it's really important that we keep that tradition alive. I'm surrounded here by Girl Scouts in our congregation. Is there anybody else in the pews who was a Girl Scout ever? Raise it proud. And what do we say, girls? Once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. So you still are a Scout. The girls are going to go ahead and say the Girl Scout promise and law. And if that's something that you know and remember, you're welcome to join us with that as well. Who would like to? We're going to say the promise all together, right? On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. And now Penny Keister will lead us in the Girl Scout law, and as a repeat, if you wanted to join with us.
I will do my best to be honest and fair,
I will do my best to be honest and fair,
friendly and caring.
friendly and caring.
Nope, friendly and helpful. Considerate and caring.
Considerate and caring.
Courageous and strong.
Courageous and strong.
Responsible for what I say and do.
Responsible for what I say and do.
Respect myself and others.
Respect myself and others.
Respect authority.
Respect authority.
Use resources wisely.
Use resources wisely.
Make the world a better place.
Make the world a better place.
And be a sister to every Girl Scout.
And be a sister to every Girl Scout.
Thank you, Girl Scouts. Thanks so much for giving them your attention and for all the support that you do show Scouts in our community. Our story today is about Frances Harper. Frances Harper has an even longer name, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. And we're going to learn a little bit about who that person was and why she's an important person to remember. Frances Harper bends the arc. Sometimes freedom is a long time coming. It may take generation upon generation for justice to be won. Our Unitarian ancestor, Reverend Theodore Parker, said, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one, and from what I see, it bends toward justice." You may have heard these words said by other people. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has said these words. President Barack Obama said these words. And he added, but here's the thing. It does not bend on its own. It only bends because each of us, in our own ways, put our hands on the arc and bend it toward justice. The hands of Unitarian Universalists have always been on that arc. You may have heard of John Adams or Susan B. Anthony, Christopher Reeve, or Rachel Carson? Have you heard of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper? Her hand was on the ark. Harper was born a free Black woman in Baltimore, Maryland in 1825. She lived with her uncle, who was a teacher and an African Methodist Episcopal minister. He was also an abolitionist. An abolitionist is someone who is objected to the enslavement of Black people. Harper followed her uncle's footsteps to become an educator and an abolitionist. She was a writer of poetry and stories. And in 1850, a law was passed that meant that she could have been accused of being a fugitive slave, an enslaved person who had run away, and she might have been captured. So she moved further north on to Ohio and then Philadelphia. And there she taught, and she ran a stop on the Underground Railroad. In 1863, with the passing of the Emancipation Proclamation, Harper knew there was still more work to be done. Even though enslaved people were freed, she knew there was more to fight for. She co-founded the National Association of Colored Women. She toured and lectured on the topic of freedom. Her lectures and writings spoke for the need for women to be free and to be more than wives and mothers. She understood what she was talking about. As a mother herself, when her husband died, Frances Harper took her daughter with her on lecture tours. And during her justice work, Harper met many Unitarians. They were also working to bend the ark. She joined hands with them and joined the first Unitarian church in Philadelphia in 1870. She often shared her poetry from the pulpit at that church. And she also maintained her membership at the AME church and taught Sunday school there as well. When Harper died in 1911, it was before the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. But Harper knew her work might help bring that freedom to others. She said, "Apparent failure may hold in its rough shell the germs of a success that will blossom in time and bear fruit throughout eternity." Some of the fruits of Harper's labors and the labor of other Unitarians and Universalists are enjoyed by us today. Yet, we are not done. There is more for us to do. So Harper's hands and Parker's and Adams's and Anthony's and Reeves and Carson's are no longer on that ark. Our hands are needed to reach up and bend that ark. I wonder how you will contribute to the bending of the ark. I wonder how all of us together will work that magic. I invite the kiddos and the adult volunteers to join me for religious education and the congregation to sing us out to Go Now in Peace.
Going back to the wonderful experience that was the trivia night last night, and how so many pieces and elements came together, how so many people were so generous, how people were diligent in following up with one another and saying, hey, you want to come buy a ticket? You want to come on in? We're having a great time. And I think we do that with intent and with love and with care, maybe a little arm twisting, but that's okay, because it is all for the sake of encouragement. It's all for the sake of living into the mission of the congregation, of living boldly and abundantly and lovingly in the world and having a good time in the process whenever possible. All of those gifts, all of that effort, all of that care is part of what we honor every Sunday in this moment. We set aside a time during our service to receive our offering. These offerings of financial donations make it possible for us to keep going into our mission, to have appreciate the legacy that came before us, all the gifts that have been offered, and to establish and sustain the gifts that will go forward for the generations to come. Now, we also share a portion of our gifts with the community through our Share the Plate practice. Half of our undesignated plate goes to a local group doing good work here. This month, our recipient is East Bluff Community Center Food Pantry. They are open most Saturdays during the month, and guests are able to choose some food items and receive a bag and also receive a good meal. This is an opportunity of resource for some of our most marginalized folks who are unhoused, low income, and they can come twice a month to the food pantry. We so appreciate the gifts and the efforts that goes into organizing these kinds of programs as well. There's so much that is unseen to make this happen in a way that is useful, that is consistent, that is sustainable, and our small financial gift will help make that happen. So with the envelopes in the pews are going to the QR code, I invite you to make a donation. If you're using the envelopes in the pews and are putting in cash, please write your name, and if it's a pledge or where the donation is supposed to go, we want to make sure to give credit where credit is due. And thank you again for all of the gifts that make our community and our efforts possible. And now I invite the ushers to please come forward. And I invite Katie Jones forward for our reading.
Bury Me in a Free Land by Frances Ellen Watkins. You may make my grave wherever you will, in a lowly vale or a lofty hill. You may make it among earth's humblest graves, but not in a land where men are slaves. I could not sleep if around my grave I heard the steps of a trembling slave. His shadow above my silent tomb would make it a place of fearful gloom. I could not rest if I heard the tread of a coffle gang to the shambles led, and the mother's shriek of wild despair rise like a curse on the trembling air. I could not rest if I heard the lash, drinking her blood at every fearful gash, and I saw her babes torn from her breast, like trembling doves from their parent nest. I'd shudder and start if I heard the bay of the bloodhound seizing their human prey, if I heard the captive plead in vain as they tightened afresh his galling chain. If I saw young girls from their mother's arms bartered and sold for their youthful charms, my eye would flash with a mournful flame, my death-paled cheek grow red with shame. I would sleep, dear friends, where bloated might can rob no man of his dearest right. My rest shall be calm in any grave where none calls his brother a slave. I ask no monument proud and high to arrest the gaze of the passers-by. All that my yearning spirit craves is, bury me not in the land of slaves.
We continue with learning songs for the resistance. The song we'll sing now is Hold On by Heidi Wilson. It was written in 2018. I hope folks will join us for the next practice for learning songs ahead of the March 28th No Kings protest. We are hosting, in fact, the next practice here on Sunday, March 22nd at 2 p.m. I invite you to rise in body and spirit and join me. We'll go through this a little bit. I think for the sake of this, Tom and I, we get to lead this time, and then we'll bring you all in. Okay. Yeah, yeah, we can do that. I have to find the right key. Hold on. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Feel free to join us. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Last time. Hold on, hold On May 10th, 1866, with the Civil War over, supporters of the women's suffrage movement gathered in Union Square in Manhattan to help refocus the nation's goal on extending the vote to women. Elizabeth Cady Stanton spoke amongst many. Now is the Reconstruction. Now is the Reconstruction as opportunity, perhaps of the century, to base our government on the broad principle of equal rights for all. Now, later that same morning, the lone Black woman amongst the speakers' assembly rose from her seat on the stage and took her place at the podium. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper gathered her moment and admonished the people so gathered and clarified that what was needed to also happen in this work of the vote and equal rights was for the country to treat everybody equally as well, including around concerns of color. She said, "You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs." As we heard in the story from Theodore Parker about that arc of the universe, part of our task is to recover and restore and refresh those who have been doing the bending and those who still need to be with us as we continue that work. And so we have a moment for that today to bring Frances Harper into the present, because she was not simply part of the past. She is also here with us and needs to be so. She didn't just challenge the people of her time. Can you imagine? I so appreciate her being this figure that stands up, right after, somewhat after Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Can you imagine the wherewithal that it took to get up in front of all those white women just after the Civil War is over and to say, "Speaking of wrongs, I'm calling you out"? But she did. She did what she had been doing her entire adult life, speaking and bringing that forth. And so she continues to challenge us today as a people of faith, as much as she did in her time around race and gender and class and voting and what the church says and what the church does and where's the difference. Now, Frances Harper, born Watkins, was born in Maryland in 1825 to free Black parents. And they had a terrible, unfortunate early death of that family, but she had a remarkable opportunity to be educated at her uncle's school and to go on to work as a domestic in a Quaker family. That family had an extensive library, and she did not simply work for them. She was welcomed into their house, and she was welcome to read anything she wanted, and she did. And with that initiative that seemed both cultivated and natural to her, she was writing and publishing poetry by the time she was 20. The world around her also was evolving. And while Maryland had been a home for her, it then became no longer a place of safety with the Fugitive Slave Act. She settled in Ohio and then in Pennsylvania, and she started to travel to speak against slavery. Now, Frances was a novelty for this time. She was a free Black woman traveling by herself in a time when women speaking in public was frowned upon by itself, but she succeeded. And she went forth and offered her presence and her oratory and spoke directly about the hardships of enslavement and the hardships of women, as we heard in that poem, "Bury Me in a Free Land." She also was an excellent businesswoman. She knew the value and worth of having books for sale at her appearances, for offering ways for people to buy a little bit of poetry or a little bit of a reading, and much more. Then, while speaking in Ohio, she met the woman who would become her husband, Fenton Harper. He was a widower with 3 children, and they married in 1860. She used her money to help buy a farm and settle with the family, help raise the 3 children, and also have a baby of their own. Unfortunately, about 4 years after they married, Fenton died suddenly, leaving her with a mountain of debt of which she was unaware. And the creditors came and took everything. As she said in her address in 1866, she describes it in this way. She says, "My husband died suddenly, leaving me a widow with 4 children, one of my own and others the stepchildren. I tried to keep my children together, but my husband died in debt. Before he had been in the grave 3 months, the administrators came and swept the very milk crocks and wash tubs from my hands. I was a farmer's wife and made butter for the market. But what could I do when they had swept it all away? They left me with one thing, a looking glass." She said, "Had I died instead of my husband, how different would be the result?" By that time, a few months after her, if she had been the one who had died, another wife would have been likely. No administrator would have gone to his house, broken up his home, sold his bed, and taken away his means of support. If she had been a man, she would have married again and received the grace to continue to manage her debts. But as a woman, she had no protection. She said, "Justice is not fulfilled as long as women are unequal before the law. Justice is not fulfilled as long as women are unequal before the law." And that led her, the whole incident with her family and being everything taken away from her, led her to further pursue rights for women. And so, with baby in tow, because what are you going to do? You bring the baby. I know that feeling too. You bring the baby. She resumed speaking, a job she could do well, and she also felt called to do in order to support herself. And after the end of the Civil War, she turned to the right to vote, along with the empowerment of women, along with the empowerment of Black women. We offer another excerpt from her speech in 1866, where she's speaking with Elizabeth to Stanton and to Susan B. Anthony and many more. And she just lays it out. She says, "We are all bound up together like one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest members without receiving a curse on its own soul. You," she said, "you tried that in the case of the Negro. You pressed him down for 2 centuries. And in so doing, you crippled the moral strength and paralyzed the spiritual energy of the white men of the country. When the hands of the Black were fettered, white men were deprived of the liberty of speech and the freedom of the press. Society cannot afford to neglect the enlightenment of any class of its members." She goes on to say, "I do not believe that giving women the ballot is immediately going to cure all the ills of life. I do not believe that white women are dewdrops just exhaled from the sky." You pause that for a moment and think. She just questioned the purity of white women. Ooh, my goodness. She wasn't done. "I like to think that, like men, they may be divided into classes, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs. I, as a colored woman, have had in this country an education that has made me feel like if I were in the situation of Ishmael, my hand against every man and every man's hand against me, Let me go tomorrow morning and take my seat in one of your streetcars in New York, and the conductor will put up his hand and stop the car rather than let me ride. She so specifically calls out the white women because Harper really understood their social power and influence. She says, talk of giving women the ballot box. Go on. It is a normal school, and the white women in this country need it. While there exists the brutal element in society which tramples the feeble and treads down the weak. I tell you, if there is any class of people that need to be lifted up from their airy nothings and selfishness, it is the white women of America. Yes, she offered that message in front of some of the most noted white suffragettes in history. And she was fearless and clear in her path. But I want to take that and pause for a moment and ask, does this sound familiar? The challenge and the accountability and the responsibility being offered up is right there and is saying, how are you doing with this measure? How are you doing with this challenge? How are we meeting the moment? Where does this land all these years after she spoke? Frances Harper did not remain in the relative safety of the North in her effort. She, in fact, went south. She, in fact, went south while the Ku Klux Klan is forming, while people are destroying the lives of African Americans in an effort to exert power and control and take away wealth and take away the functionalness of any vote wherever that had been granted. And yet there she was, going as deep as she could to speak to the people, especially women who had been enslaved, who had been emancipated, who lived, most of them, in the same shacks in which they had been enslaved. She was able to do this traveling and this speaking. She did not know harm to herself. She was able to go forth and be this fearless. At the end of the 1800s, she was navigating the effort to secure the 15th Amendment that would ensure the vote for Black men. Now, this effort was a split, caused a lot of split in the efforts of the time for the suffragettes and advocates for the vote. Harper did not begrudge the men who got the vote before Black women. She simply continued the work for the rights of all women because she understood the level of injustice in our society based on gender. She understood how the value of the vote was connected to that. She has a poem where she criticizes, in fact, belittles a man for selling his vote for the sake of food. For Harper, the vote is too precious, even if it means an empty stomach. She doesn't let anyone off the hook, and she is still able to speak and be heard. In our time, we use the word intersectionality, thanks to Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who first coined it in 1969. Intersectionality speaks to the overlapping experience of gender and race and class and more marginalized identities that cannot be separated from one from another. Our ability and our location are deeply and thoroughly intertwined. Frances Harper spoke to it from the very earliest days of her life. Her experience of injustice as a woman, as an African American in the United States, understanding the levels of both wealth and poverty, understanding the fight for a voice and a vote, all of these are bound up, she saw, bound up with politics and power and access and religion, amongst many forces. And Harper does not let the church off during this moment either. And that's the last takeaway for today. In her time, social justice and religion were not really separate conversations. And as we heard in the words of her 1866 speech, she is calling on folks to live into the moral and spiritual health of our whole society. The moral call was a Christian call. In her time, she learned about faith at an early age. As an adult in her AME congregation and later in Unitarian congregations, she was a member of our first Unitarian church in Philadelphia and participated in both worlds. She knew the Black church and she knew the white church well. At a time when the Bible was used to defend the enslavement of people and to justify the subservience of others to whites, Frances Harper brought out this presence in her novel from 1892. Kenny Wiley, who was a writer at the UU World magazine, talks about this. Harper's 1892 novel, Iola Leroy, or Shadows Uplifted, was the title, and it may have been the best-selling novel by an African American before the 20th century. Iola Leroy. It explores the title character's decision to forego passing as white and work to fight to end slavery and obtain civil rights. Through Harper's characters, Iola Leroy issues a call to the religious persons to join in the struggle for freedom. Iola asks her mother in the novel, "Are these people Christians who made the laws which are reducing us to slavery? If this is Christianity, I hate and despise it." Iola's mother responds, "I have not learned Christianity from them. I have learned it from the foot of the cross and from the New Testament." Unitarian Lydia Mariah Child pointed out in 1833, Christianity expressly teaches us to love our neighbors as ourselves. This shows how dangerous it is, even for the best of us, to become accustomed to what is wrong. This conversation about religion and what it is teaching and what it is being used for is certainly alive and well today. Harper was not alone amongst the voices saying, becoming comfortable with an injustice is not okay. As a church, as a people of faith, of any faith, we must keep returning to that original call and value that we are to be loving to one another equally. In our time, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called us to be maladjusted. He called us to the arc of the universe and to be maladjusted, as does Harper. So I wonder, and I want us to make sure that we keep examining and pondering, how are we doing? How is the liberal church doing? How to remain true to the moment and not adjust and succumb. I bring forth Frances Harper in this moment. We have Black History Month, Women's History Month, and there's intersections, because we know it is not actually history. This is the work. We listen to these people from our past to call us forth into a future, to remind us of what we must keep doing and how we must keep going. Harper died in 1911 at the age of 85. Her funeral was at the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia. And she offered her gifts for that long life. She offered her gifts, her privilege as an educated antebellum African American woman, to raise questions of race, gender, class, theology, and the vote in one of the most critical centuries of our human history. We are learning to remember her again, as they did in 2016 by including her in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Engraved in that museum are her closing thoughts from Bury Me in a Free Land. I ask no monument, proud and high, to arrest the gaze of passers-by. All that my yearning spirit craves is bury me not in a land of slaves. Let us take up this request, take up this call, and take up our part in the bending of that arc. Amen. Just want to recognize the incongruity of what I'm about to announce, but sometimes we have to take care of things too. Before we head into the closing hymn, we have a final announcement. This is a tornado drill. Given the weather of the week, I bet you're volunteering. Please follow the instructions I'm about to offer. Once we confirm that everybody is in tornado-safe areas, the administrative and security volunteers will sound the all clear, and folks can proceed to coffee hour because we have to buy cookies too. If I had a green card in front of me, it would say, after this announcement, we will leave the sanctuary. We are under a tornado warning. We will proceed to safe areas inside the church. Those caregivers of religious education students should go directly to the RE Commons and go take cover with their children. The storm shelter areas are marked as tornado shelters. They're handy dandy little tornado symbols. Please be mindful of one another's mobility. The nearest safe location from the sanctuary is the coat room. And other areas includes the hallways, the bathrooms, the RE Commons, the internal offices as well. If you're more mobile, please consider moving further into the building and let folks who have a little more challenge with moving to be in the areas that are closer to the sanctuary. And I invite you, please leave now in an orderly fashion and take cover.